I'm your host, Tory Belleci, and today we are going to be talking to Robert Vogt. He is the CTO of Voyomotive, and he also created a solar-powered car. And that's the topic we're going to be talking about today. Is it possible? Can we, in this day and age, have a real solar-powered vehicle? Robert, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Tory.
So first of all, tell me a little bit about like your background. What was your upbringing like? How did you get interested in this field?
Yeah, so my dad has a doctorate in computer science, and he did a lot of work on expert vision systems, radar, lots of things with military photography, trying to improve
Spying.
radar signatures of stealth planes. Also, lots of work on
your father was a spy. He was working for.
No, but he certainly helped with some of the tech. I first saw the Michigan solar car back, I must have been 5 or 6.
Wow.
So he worked at a company here.
The University of Michigan, they have this history of building solar vehicles.
Yes, Michigan has been doing this since 1989.
Okay.
So I saw one of the first cars being painted, actually at the company that he worked at the time, and I thought it was really cool. And then I ended up going to University of Michigan and getting recruited onto the team by some friends of mine. So my job, while I did help with a lot of the vehicle construction, my job was race strategy and also doing a lot of the onboard electronics. So telemetry, driver controls, motor control, all the electrical systems in concert with some other people.
Now, tell me just a little bit about the fabrication and what goes into the design and what's, the interior of the vehicle.
Well, there's not a lot. It's carbon fiber through and through. Sometimes the upper surface will be Kevlar or fiberglass if you don't need the carbon fiber for the strength.
Okay.
But very light. The whole chassis probably weighs 80 pounds or so. Wow. Before you start adding, the suspension and the wheels and the solar array and all that stuff. So it's very, very light. Usually you have different teams do different things. Some will do a space frame. Michigan would do a unibody carbon with large rails that would go down the length of the car that would operate as supports with the suspension. Then you have a very optimized suspension that's probably somewhere between a motorcycle and a car. Brakes that are somewhere between them, probably pretty close to a motorcycle. Mm-hmm. And no power steering, no brake boosters, no air conditioning. Typically what you have is a little nacoduct at the front with bringing in a little bit of air to the driver. Yeah, so one of our cars, actually one of the cars I worked on, we were able to get this rare earth coating company to do the same coating they do on the astronaut helmets, the gold coating.
Yeah.
To reduce the heat in the car. So that was really cool.
Oh, that's right, smart. Yeah. So, and so like, do you see this technology kind of spilling over into the commercial world? Like, do you think there'll ever be a day where people could go and buy a solar car?
I mean, obviously we've seen some cars with some supplemental solar charging, nothing dramatic, but a little bit. Certainly today, I think the right application for solar is fixed. It just makes a lot more sense to have it as fixed infrastructure. When we get to the point when this can be kind of a paint-on coating, it doesn't require a lot of wiring, it isn't as fragile, then absolutely. And the cost of making one Michigan solar car is about $2 million.
Whoa.
And it's not super practical either. And even if you had 100% efficient cells, which you're not going to get, you still don't have enough energy to move a traditional car.
You can go buy a Bugatti for $2 million.
Right. I mean, it's not going to be as green. but it's going to be
Well,
faster.
I guess it depends on what color you paint it.
You know, I have a plaid Model S myself, so I have my fun. But
So you think if the technology continues the way it's going, we will someday see actual cars powered completely solar?
well, I wouldn't say completely. I think it's supplemental. I think it really ends up being a supplemental source.
Yeah.
Um, if you can make it inexpensive enough and efficient enough, then I think it makes sense, right? In the paint, you know, it's going to be a lot of work to get there, but yeah, I think that if you can put it into the coating of the vehicle, then it makes sense because you can add charge as you're moving or as you're stationary. Some people it'll be enough. Other people it's not going to be nearly enough. Um, you know, I rarely have to recharge my car during the day, but many people recharge once or twice a day in their commute. So it just depends on the situation.
How efficient are you're talking about as the technology in solar power, the cells? You're talking about a paintable solar paint. How efficient is this technology becoming?
Well, the gallium arsenide cells are north of 35% at this point, the space grade cells. Silicon cells are the higher end ones are in the mid to upper 20s. And they may be even better now. This is just since the last time I looked. I would suspect that at some point there will be some game changing technology that massively boosts the conversion efficiency. Maybe we'll get into the 60, 70, 80%. Who knows? I don't think it's necessary to be useful, but definitely when things are moving, things have to be a lot more useful than when they're fixed, right? The same
Yeah.
for the batteries and the electric cars, right? They may not be good enough for propulsion because they don't have that energy density, but for grid support, you can use them forever.
Now, as these become more efficient, what is the lifespan of a typical solar cell?
So for fixed installations, I think the standard lifespan is 20 or 30 years. I'm not an expert on that, and I think it also depends on the maintenance, how they're encapsulated, what the temperatures are, and so on. So I definitely don't claim to be an expert on that, but I've been told mostly 20 to 30 years.
Okay.
And that should be extended as well for fixed applications. For transportation, that's less of a problem.
I mean, what do you see the future of solar transportation?
I really see it as a supplemental power source to top off the vehicle when it's sitting, especially if it's sitting for a long time, if it's not being driven a lot, and also in motion. But it needs to be pretty simple and maintainable. As soon as you have an accident, if you had a car covered in solar cells and you have an accident, you have a big expense, right? It's excessive.
It's not like that's just going to buff out.
Right. And it's a lot of labor to match a solar array to the body of a typical car. So
Right.
in certain flat areas that are already there, great. That can be easy. Nice way to add a little bit. If we can get the coatings down, right, and that is a big leap of technology. But if we can get that technology going, then I think this becomes a lot more practical. And then of course we
Yeah.
save a lot of energy coming from the grid if we can do that.
Do you what about public transportation? I mean, you look at let's say buses, they're going to have a lot more surface area. Are you seeing this technology being used in public transportation?
So that's a very good question. Except for very high density routes, like between very big cities, like let's say, San Francisco and Los Angeles, or DC and New York. Except for those corridors, I don't see a lot of benefit to existing public transit, especially buses. I think buses are kind of pointless. The fill factor of buses is, most of the buses I see are pretty empty.
Yeah, I know.
Even in
Isn't that crazy? It's like you got this giant vehicle and it's usually one or two people in there and then the driver.
right, because you have to have so many buses to be able to accommodate the peak, right?
Right.
Um, you know, I think the main reason for the bus is the human is very expensive, in my view, right? So if we get to self-driving, then I think that problem goes away. The efficiency of having everybody packed into a bus is slightly higher if it's
Yeah.
full. right, than individual vehicles, but it's not so much higher that it's worth doing that. And you have to think about the expenditure of time and energy to get people to the boarding point and to their final destination on a bus or a train. The nice thing about self-driving cars is they get you exactly where you need to go in an efficient time.
In a perfect world, how would you see the future of solar transportation moving towards? Like what would be like your kind of dream world as far as solar transportation goes?
I can certainly see that being applied to boats. Plenty of applications for boats if you're not moving fast, right? With large surface area vessels like cargo ships.
Oh yeah, totally.
I've seen some hybrid boats. I was just at the boat show in Miami. Green Line is showing off some hybrid boats with solar power.
Oh, and they're out in the middle of the ocean where they got like there's tons of reflection, right?
Well, and the really cool thing about those systems is they can run as a series or a parallel hybrid. So a series hybrid is using the diesel engine in this case to generate electricity, and then it powers the electric motors from that. And the nice thing about that capability is you can run the engine at its maximum efficiency RPM and load and optimize your recharging, optimize your fuel efficiency. But also, since it can also go in parallel mode, you can also get maximum power out of both drive systems at the same time. So it's really neat technology. There's a lot of work to be done to make it practical for longer distance cruising, but it'll be very interesting. And of course, if we get to coatings, then it's going to be a no-brainer for large cargo ships and so on. Again, as supplemental power. Yeah.
And I would imagine it would be also beneficial to aircrafts, right? Because it's like with an airplane, you're getting above any kind of weather. So you're going to be getting straight sunlight for the duration of the flight.
So I think for aircraft, I don't know that that's going to work very well. I mean, certainly not anything that's going to carry a human. But
for supplement.
Yeah. I think the power, the energy usage to get a reasonable distance on an airplane is so high that I don't know that you're gaining anything, and the mass becomes an issue. Now, if it's a freebie, if it's a coating, right, and you have to have a coating anyway, if it's like a paint, okay, maybe, but not really gaining anything in the air. In that case, that coating would be gaining something while it's sitting on the ground. In the air, just you're looking at 100, 200 gallons an hour or more.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of energy there.
The solar's a drop in the bucket. That's going to charge your cell phone when you're on the flight.
Yes, basically. There've been some experimental planes, obviously, that we've seen that have solar, but they're ultra light. They're enormous, big wings.
Yeah,
more of a demonstration, like a solar car.
Well, Robert, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me about this. This is such a cool field that you're in, and it's just this whole solar car. I mean, I love that race. I mean, it's just one of those kind of taking something that it almost seems impossible, right? Being able to power a car by solar power, and then having this endurance race. It's such a cool concept.
It's really cool. And if you have time, you should come check out the race this summer.
Oh my God, I would love that. But see, I would cheat. I would put booster rockets in mine, and just like when the judges weren't looking, I might hit those booster rockets.
Put you in the experimental class. Demonstration.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Robert. I appreciate this.
Thanks for having me, and nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.